Oi, Grot, pass me that thingamabob and that bing bong. We need to get these copters up for combat patrol Carnage. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Combat Patrol Carnage, and today we're kicking off issue 48, which is our final part for our Deffkoptas. So we've got our last model to build plus all the bases needed for the models in the previous issue. Going into the issue, we have our paint guide for the Deffkoptas. So we're painting up one of these guys on camera. They all pretty much have a very similar paint scheme, and there's a few extra little bits which is nice to make some of the models more personalised. But yeah, all in all they share a fairly similar sort of paint guide, as all the colours are pretty matchy between the unit. The bases are nice, which helps separate things from each model, and the pilots all have a slightly different pose as well, which is pretty cool. After that we got some new lore to look at, so cunning but brutal. We got melee weapons of the 41st Millennium. And then we have part 12 of Bonds of Honor. Before we hit our scenario for the issue, vroom daka daka, as we try out these Deffkoptas in a little bit of a skirmish. So this is the final model, the unit leader with the custom blaster and the big bomb to hang underneath his Deffkopta. We've got the added extra rockets on the ends of propellers as well for nice little details. And he's got a little signpost there and some rubble to fly over as well. So yeah, really do like these models. They're all nicely uniquely posed, which is kind of cool. But it doesn't make them look a little samey if you're going to have multiple units of them. Finally, we get some 70mm slaughter bases, which I haven't actually seen since Mortal Realms and the Nighthaunts. So before we head over to the table and start to paint our Deffkoptas, don't forget to, of course, do all the usual. If you're enjoying this content, don't forget to give the video a little like, and I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed as well, especially if you're new around here. Finally, you can drop me a comment down below, let me know how you're getting on with your hobby and your combat patrol journey. I'd love to hear what you're up to and what you're painting your armies as. Drop everything in a comment down below and we can have a friendly little discussion. Finally then, Combat Patrol Carnage is proudly sponsored by warbait.shop, your one-stop supply for all your hobby needs. They stock everything you need from getting started and expanding your force, to adding that final highlight with some colours, and of course decorating your hobby and gaming areas as well. They also stock past and present partworks from Hachette, including Combat Patrol, so if you're looking for some extra issues, check out the Combat Patrol page, and you can get some orders in ready for those future issues where you might want to pick up those doubles, especially when it comes to the Astra Militarum and Jesus Occults later. So let's head over to the table and we'll add some colour to our Deffkoptas. So here we are with issue 48 then, and we've got our bases for our Deffkoptas. We'll put those to one side ready to start building. And we've got our final model here, so yeah, pretty cool. We've got the custom blaster here. We've also got a big bomb, and we've got his rocket powered propellers. We've got the awesome pilot's hat with goggles there for his head, and we've got both arms on the controls. So this orc definitely knows how to pilot things. That's his boots, sorry. One arm there and one arm with a slugger. So yeah, he's a boss, definitely with a pistol out. So yeah, all in all pretty cool. Tyre and some little bits of detail, including some squig mines and plenty of skulls. Really cool. So yeah, put that to one side, ready to build with issue 47. So we'll adjust the camera and we can dive into looking at our paint guide before we bring in our paint desk. Into the issue we go for the first time. So what do we have? Well, we've got our paint guide 37 looking at the Deffkoptas. We have 3 read articles, Cunning but Brutal, Melee Weapons, and Bonds of Honor Part 12. And then we have a simple scenario, Vroom Daka Daka, where we get to try out our Deffkoptas now that they're fully painted and battle ready. So, how to paint Deffkoptas. Follow this guide to paint your new unit of Deffkoptas. Gather your models and your paints and set up your painting station in the well-lit area. As you work your way through this guide, make sure that you still have enough light to work by. Make sure you take breaks whenever you need to and don't strain your eyes or hands. makes it very nice advice to make sure you take plenty of breaks. So as I mentioned, I'm going to start painting all these with a spray can primer. I've gone halfway through the magazine, and yeah, I'm finding out I'm using way too much from a pot of paint. I'm going through nearly a pot of delivery at this rate. Probably 2 pots by the time I base coat the Death Dread as well. So yeah, definitely going to start using the Rattle Cans primer. I'm going to use Matte Black by Colourforge. Then we can start giving a single coat of Abaddon Black, just so we've got a nice even base coat to go on with. And then we can start painting. So our next details is all our metallics, so lead belcher. Then after that, we make sure we change our paint water. Then we've got Mephisto red, so we've got some of the teeth at the backs here on the rotor blades and on various other parts of the models. We've got the big bomb to paint, we've got red cables, we've got the heads of the missiles, and there's more teeth at the fronts on some of these different copters. Each one's slightly different, which is nice. And finally, we're going to paint one of the guys with goggles with red lenses. The Crag Blue is used just for the guy with the goggles there, which is our Custom Blaster boss. You could also use Crag Blue if you wanted on some of the cables, just to help make variety. Then using Corax White to pick out warheads and some glyphs. Avalanche Sunset to pick out yellow cables and yellow panels. Catch and Flesh for leather work, including some of the jackets and the seats, don't forget them, and the hat on our pilots. Mechanica Santa Grey for one jacket, Mechanica Santa Grey for the trousers on the others. Then we're doing Auric Flesh on all of our skin, Screaming Pink for the tongues, and finally Wraithbone for teeth and bandages. Then we're on to our shades. So Nuln Oil is going to be used on the majority of stuff. So all of our silvers, our leathers, our greys, reds, and white details. So make sure we've got a nice coat on all of those. We're leaving one guy's jacket blank. We're going to shade that differently in a bit. Agric Earth Shade is used to shade all of our teeth and bandages, as well as differentiate some of the metalwork by painting it over to make it look brassy. Like a Flesh Shade is finally used on all our yellow details. Then it's Corellia Green Shade, which you're using to shade the orc skin, one guy's jacket and one guy's trousers, as well as the blue goggles. Then we're relayering Auric Flesh on all of our orc skin before we move on to our highlights. So this is the optional stage. You can highlight if you want, or you can leave it. But highlighting all of our silver details for Stormhost Silver, and our brass details as well. Night Crystal Flesh for all of our leather details, and Calgar Blue for all of our lenses. Then we've got our bases to do, so apply your basing technique as shown in Technique 6. We then got rocks, armor panels, squig bombs, tyres, and the tree as well to pick out. So paint these however best you feel, but Catch and Flesh with a dry brush and Night Quest of Flesh for the tree. Mechanical Standard Grey, followed by Administrator Grey dry brushing on your rocks. The Squig Mines, painting in red, Tyre black and silver. You got skulls as well to pick out. Then we got a gallery of our finished Deffkoptas with all the highlights. We've also got leather areas picked out with Calgar Blue as well, which I forgot to mention. Like I said, these are all totally optional. You can paint them if you want, or not bother. It's up to you. I think the Deffkoptas will look good just after the shading stage. But as they're going to be kind of centerpiece models, you might want to take them a little bit further. Maybe just 1 or 2 highlights. It's entirely up to you. And then we go. Like I said, that's our finished gallery, showing all of our models from different sides, including our little squig bird with his wings and little blue eyes there as well. Right then, let's bring our paint desk in and put the paint guide to work on our remaining Deffkopta. So here we are with our Deffkopta. He is all ready and undercoated. I actually sprayed this guy with matte black from Colourforge, and as you can see on the base, there's a bit of a difference there. That's because I've gone over everything with at least 1 layer of Abaddon Black, so that we've got a nice coat in case we need to do any tidy ups later on. Which, as you've seen by previous videos of mine, there probably will be. So we'll kick things off with our only metallic for orcs, which is Lead Belcher. So before we work on the actual copter, we'll pick out the areas on the base that need to be painted in with Lead Belcher. So we've got this mechanical detail attached to the canisters here. And we've got the canisters themselves will paint. We'll paint the main bodies of the canisters red in a later stage, but right now we'll give it a coat of lead belcher so we can get all the finer details. There's a few bits of casing, some spent shells scattered around. These vary from model to model, so just take a good look at your base. That's actually a rock. And finally on the base, we've got the ends of this larger canister here. And we'll leave the rest of it black. Moving over to the Deffkoptas, we've got quite a lot of areas to coat. So we've got pretty much all of this undercarriage on the main fuselage of the copter, including the pedals and the metal bits on the Orc's boots. And this, we have an actual brake, which we can just about see there. We've got a little bit of metal underneath the seat. Got these landing skids. This small box. And we got a lot of round details to pick out as well. Don't forget the blades here on our rear rotor. We've got the engine and exhausts to pick out. And finally, we've got a lot of the mechanical workings of the propeller, as well as these tanks here as well. So with our metallics now dried, we're ready to move on with fresh water in our pot to our matte colours, and we're kicking things off a little out of order to the magazine. It asks us to do the red next, but I think it's better to do the white first, otherwise you'll end up with pink water and potentially pink paint. We luckily only have a couple of areas on this particular model to do, but check the others as there are a variety of different areas on those. So on this guy, we've got the glyph here on the tank. Don't worry about the skull, we can paint that over when we tidy up later on. And on our pilot here, the areas it wants to pick out are a variety of different ends to our missiles. So it suggests the top one here, and on this side the bottom and the middle of the middle one. Not very easy to get to the other side, but just do your best. As always, we'll tidy up later on any mistakes that we make. So with Corax White now dry, we're moving on to our next light colour, and that's Avalanche Sunset. This is only going to be used on small details again, mostly cables, the boxes with the lightning bolt symbol where the power is. So on this particular model, we've got this little box down here. And the cable here is going to be painted yellow as well. So with our yellow done, you'll also notice I've picked out the larger teeth on the rotor blade. These are meant to be done in white, so I've painted those now. So we're ready to move on to our next colour, and again on this model there's not a lot of areas. There's only about 3. So we want Mephiston Red now. We're going to start working on our darker colours. So first off then, we're going to pick out our little squig bird here. Paint this with red. And then later we'll come back in and pick out the feet with white as well as the wings. Then on the actual copter itself, we're going to pick out these teeth here along the bottom of the missile racks. Getting both sides. And although the paint guide doesn't say to do it on this particular model, you could, if you want to, paint one of the missile heads red. Let's pick out this middle one here, just to add some variety to the model. And the final area to pick out is on the base. So we've got these tanks here that we need to go over the main body of with red, leaving that silver trim. So next up, we're going to want Catachan flesh. This is going to be for, on this model, the tree, and all the models are going to want their seats picked out like this. You'll also want to pick out one vest, just to help differentiate the models. So I'll start out with the stump and roots of the tree on the base here. So just pick those out. Then onto the Deffkoptas itself. So we got the seats, we've got this big pad at the back here, being careful around the pipes we've completed. And we've also got the seat that he sat on. Don't forget to get his belt at this point as well. And finally, we got the rest of the tree. So with our brown details done, we're going to need to get our small layer brush out for this, because we're going to need two different brushes for applying our Mechanica Standard Grey. So we'll use our medium base brush to do the base, and on our Orc pilot, we're going to get his jacket and trousers ready for two different shades. So we'll kick things off with our base. So as usual, we want to paint all of the rocks, being careful around the areas we've already finished. And of course the entirety of the flat of the base ready for our texture paint. With our base done, we're going to move over to our small layer brush. We're going to get the trousers, being careful around the completed seats and belts. And while we're at it, we'll get his jacket as well. So I've just realised this model doesn't actually require Screamer Pink because he doesn't have his gob open. But you will need that for the one orc that does have his mouth open to get his tongue. So the last colours we're going to need are Orc Flesh, Wraithbone, and a tidy up with Abaddon Black. So we'll paint all the orc skin next with Orc Flesh. So with our paint ready and our small layer brush to hand, we can start blocking in the orc skin. So underneath his arm here, being careful around the black armour that runs around. There we get his arm here, being careful around the black bangle. I know the paint guide says to do it silver, but I'm trying not to go back to silver again for anything. We got the top of his head exposed, so we'll get that. The rest of his face covered with a little bandana, which again we're going to leave black. And finally we got his other arm with his stick bomb. And while I wait for the last layer of orc flesh to finish drying, we'll go to Wraithbone, and this is just going to be for all the skulls on the base on this model. But on the others you've got your teeth and some bandages as well to pick out, so don't forget to get those. So onto our base then, we'll pick out all the skulls. So we got 1, 2, and there's one by the tree there as well. So over the grey you're going to need 2 coats of the Wraithbone. Stray hairs not included. Just wait for the paint to dry and then go back into your second coat. So with the Wraithbone now dry, we're ready to move on to our tidy up stage, and we've got quite a few areas to tidy up where we've got smudges of paint. But luckily it's mostly all on the black areas. So while I'm at it, I'm also going to do the texture paste on the base so that we're ready for all of our shades, as that's going to take quite some time to dry. So I'll be right back after this tidy up and we can get on to our shading stage. So now with all of our paints dried, tidied up in places, we're ready to move on to our shade stage. I finished picking out the details on the little squig bird there, got his blue eyes and the white feet and wings ready for shade. I've even picked out, although you probably can't see it, the screen with a little bit of macragge blue. So first up, we'll use the shade that's going to be used the most on this, which is going to be Known Oil. And as you can see, I'm kind of running out. So I'm going to have to pick up a new one of these, although I might have a spare, I'll double check. So we'll get this ready and we'll start shading. So we'll kick things off on the base. So we've got to shade this huge tank here, as well as all of the texture and the grey areas as well. The only areas to avoid are going to be the skulls. Other than that, hit everything with Known Oil. Then onto our Deffkoptas, we're going to want to get the tree, being careful around our squig bird, and then we can start hitting all of the silver, red, and white areas. And don't forget the brown as well. Okay, with Known Oil dry, we're ready to move to our next shade. So we want Agarax Earthshade. This is going to be for the skulls on the base, as well as picking out a variety of different panels and mechanical bits on the Deffkoptas. So first onto our base, we'll just get these skulls, as well as any bullet casings. And then onto our Deffkoptas, so we're going to pick out various panels. So we'll get this one right up underneath the engine here, or the front fairing. The engine itself, we'll get these little bits on the center, the exhaust covers. I want to get either side of this ball-like contraption here. As well as these little orbs on the end of the rotor blades. Up next on our shades is going to be Korea Green Shade, and we're going to apply this to two different areas. First, obviously, the skin, but we're also going to use it on his jacket and trousers to add a bit of variety to the shades of the cloth. So we'll apply this pretty much all over the torso area here. So we get the skin and the jacket, and we'll also get the trousers. I also want to apply this to any blue screens you've done. And also vary the application from model to model. Next up, we want a tiny bit of Caribou Crimson, and this is to go all over our squig bird. So we can take this straight from the pot, making sure we haven't got it overloaded. Apply this to the wings, the body, and the feet to give a nice red shade. And finally, we're going to use Riker Flesh Shade, and this is just going to be the shade yellow areas. So on this one, just our cables. Again, you can go straight from the pot, making sure not too overloaded. Apply this over our yellow box and our yellow cable. And with that, our wash stage is complete. Now we just need to relayer the orc flesh and give a dry brush to the base. And we're going to call our models complete. So first off, we're going to need our Administratum Grey, our dry brush, and of course, our bit of tissue. So we'll get some of this onto our brush and work it off as usual into the tissue. Working it into the bristles, move it around, making sure we're not too overloaded. That should do. And onto our base, we'll just flick this over the rocks and the texture, being careful around the other details. Once that's done, we're going to want Abaddon Black to paint the base rim. So just tidy up any random hairs. Tidy your base rim with Abaddon Black. While our base finishes drying, we'll come back in with orc flesh to relayer all the orc skin. So with our small layer brush ready and loaded, you can pick out raised chunks of orky flesh. And there we go, our final Deffkoptas is complete and freshly snapped off his base. As I was pushing the stem in gently, the fragile connections finally gave out. So, not going to bother re-gluing it because it's going to just be a fragile connection still. Instead, I'm going to finish up this video, then I'm going to go drilling a hole and another hole and attaching a clear flying stand to this guy. But anyway, we have our unit. They look cool, ready to cause some pain. You can see here I've done this guy with a grey jacket. The other guy, the leader here has black trousers. I was meant to do the jacket on this guy with non-oil, but I totally forgot that and I just went straight for the coily green shade all over. It's cool. Helps make them stand out at least. So yeah, this guy might be the next to snap off. He's got a slightly better connection point, but as you can see, he's kind of flimsy. This guy, on the other hand, he's actually one of the strongest, even though it's no bigger than the other guy. Yeah. Right, there we have it. So that's our unit painted for issue 48. Up next, it's time for our lore and read articles, and then we'll be ready to play with these guys in an actual game as we test them out in a new scenario.
So, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've also had fun painting your Deffkoptas. I'm off now. Bye.